The sun hovered low over the rugged mesas, casting long shadows across the jagged canyons, turning the rock walls into brilliant streaks of gold and red. The wind whispered through the arroyos, carrying with it the scent of sage and the distant echoes of horses' hooves on the hard-packed earth. In the heart of this unforgiving land, a small band of Apache warriors moved with the quiet precision of shadows, their moccasins barely stirring the dust beneath them. At their center rode a man whose reputation had begun to stretch far beyond the boundaries of his own people, a man whose courage and cunning had become the stuff of legends, and whose heart was bound by a code older than any treaty or conquest. He was their chief, a figure both revered and feared, and today he carried not only the weight of leadership but also the weight of an oath that would alter the course of his life forever. The day had begun like any other, with the sun cresting the horizon, spilling its light over the cliffs and valleys, awakening the land and its people. The warriors had risen before dawn, each performing his own ritual, brushing the dust from his hair and painting his face with ochre and charcoal, each stroke a symbol of courage, of vigilance, of identity. The chief had performed the same ritual, but his hands trembled slightly as he painted the line beneath his eyes, a mark of determination, a reminder of the burden he carried. His mind, usually as sharp and precise as the arrowheads he crafted himself, wrestled with the knowledge that today's challenge was unlike any other. An enemy had come from across the mountains, a band of warriors whose skill and ferocity demanded respect. And they carried with them a strange request, a test of honor and valor, one that required the chief to stake more than just his reputation. The warriors assembled in a clearing where the land dipped into a natural amphitheater, a place where the echoes of the past seemed to linger in the air, where stories of triumph and tragedy whispered through the canyon walls. There, the chief dismounted and walked among his people, speaking in low, deliberate tones. Each word carried weight, each glance communicated understanding and resolve. "Today," he said, his voice carrying over the quiet murmurs of the men, "we face a trial not only of skill, but of heart. They come to test our courage, our honor, and they ask for a pledge, a promise that none of us can take lightly." The men nodded, their expressions serious, their eyes fixed on their leader, sensing the gravity of the moment. The chief's gaze shifted toward the horizon, where a dust cloud marked the approach of the challengers. There was no fear there, only the calm determination of a man who understood the stakes and the consequences. The enemy emerged from the canyon, a group of horsemen clad in the muted colors of their own lands, each face hidden beneath the shadows of wide-brimmed hats and scarves. Their leader, a man whose eyes gleamed with a mixture of arrogance and curiosity, rode at the front, and as he dismounted, he called out across the distance, his voice carrying clearly in the crisp air. "Chief," he shouted, "we have heard of your skill and your courage. Today, we ask for a contest, a duel of honor. Should you lose, the terms are simple: your wife, your family, your home. We take them as our own. Should you triumph, our respect and friendship shall be yours forever." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication, and a hush fell over the clearing. The chief's heart did not waver, but he felt the weight of every soul who depended on him. He knew that this was no ordinary battle. It was a test of spirit, of the bond between a leader and his people, and of the sacred trust that connected man to wife, family, and tribe. For a long moment, the chief considered his options. He could refuse, and in doing so, maintain the safety of his family, but risk dishonor, risk the loss of respect that could fracture his people's unity. He could fight recklessly, driven by pride, but risk not only his own life but the lives of everyone he loved. Finally, he took a deep breath, feeling the wind against his face, smelling the sage and the dust, hearing the faint call of a hawk circling above. Then he spoke, his voice steady and unwavering, carrying across the clearing with a clarity that silenced even the enemy. "If I am defeated," he said, "take my wife, and know that in doing so you honor the courage of a man who has always stood for his people. But know also this: the heart of an Apache warrior does not yield lightly. The spirit that protects his family, his tribe, and his land is fiercer than any steel, stronger than any chain." There was a pause, and then a ripple of murmurs ran through the assembled warriors. His words were not boastful, nor were they empty threats. They were a declaration of resolve, a statement of principle, and an oath that would be remembered long after the dust settled. The duel was arranged at the edge of a rocky plateau, where the cliffs dropped sharply into the canyon below, and where the wind could carry the sound of battle to every ear. The chief mounted his horse, feeling the familiar press of leather and the weight of his bow at his side, and his warriors formed a circle around the plateau, their eyes keen and alert. The enemy leader did the same, a subtle nod exchanged between the two men, a silent acknowledgement of mutual respect even amid the tension of the coming contest. The air was electric, charged with anticipation, and the land itself seemed to hold its breath. Every movement, every glance, every twitch of muscle would be scrutinized, every action carried consequence. And in that moment, the chief understood that this was more than a test of strength or skill, it was a test of character, a test that would echo through generations. The duel began with a measured pace, the chief and his opponent circling each other with the careful deliberation of experienced warriors. Each knew the other's abilities, each respected the other's prowess, and each sought to find the opening that would determine victory. Arrows sang through the air, their tips glinting in the dying light of the sun, and the clash of weapons rang out, a rhythmic counterpoint to the pounding of hearts. The chief moved with fluid precision, anticipating, reacting, adapting, his every motion a blend of instinct and training. He remembered the stories of his ancestors, the lessons of survival and strategy passed down through countless generations, and he allowed those lessons to guide his hands and his mind. The enemy leader was skilled, no doubt, but the chief's resolve was unwavering. He fought not for pride alone, but for honor, for the protection of his family, and for the promise he had made to his people. Hours seemed to stretch into an eternity. The sun dipped lower, the sky shifting to shades of crimson and violet, and yet neither combatant yielded. Sweat and dust mingled on their faces, muscles burned with fatigue, and the sound of strained breaths filled the plateau. And yet the chief's mind remained clear, focused on the principles that had guided him since childhood. He thought of the oath he had spoken, the pledge that had bound him to his people and to his family. He thought of the stories that would be told of this day, the legacy that would be passed on through song and memory. And he thought of the bond that connected man to man, enemy to enemy, and how respect could emerge even from the crucible of combat. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, the chief saw an opening, subtle but undeniable, a momentary lapse in his opponent's guard. With a movement both swift and deliberate, he seized the advantage, disarming the enemy and forcing him to yield. Silence fell over the plateau, broken only by the wind whistling through the cliffs and the distant call of a hawk. The chief lowered his weapon, his chest heaving with exertion, and looked upon his defeated foe with the respect that had guided his every action. The enemy leader, chest rising and falling with exertion, nodded solemnly, acknowledging both his defeat and the honor of the victor. In that moment, the chief had not only triumphed in combat, he had fulfilled the oath he had taken, a promise that had defined his courage and his commitment to those he loved. As the dust settled and the warriors from both sides gathered around, the chief spoke again, his voice carrying across the plateau with the calm authority of a man who had faced death and emerged stronger for it. Let this day be remembered not for the battle, but for the courage and respect that guided it. Let it be known that the spirit of an Apache warrior is fierce, but tempered with honor, and that the bonds we hold, of family, of tribe, of human dignity, cannot be broken by mere force. His words resonated, echoing off the cliffs, carried by the wind, and seared into the memory of everyone present. The enemy leader extended a hand in a gesture of reconciliation, and the chief accepted it, sealing not only the outcome of the duel but the beginning of a lasting respect between peoples. As night fell over the mesas, the firelight flickering in the camp, the chief sat beside his wife, her hand resting gently on his arm. He had kept his oath, he had defended his people, and he had shown that courage and honor were inseparable. Around them, the warriors laughed quietly, telling stories and sharing the quiet relief that comes after a trial well met. And in the vast silence of the desert night, with stars glittering overhead and the wind whispering through the canyons, the chief knew that this day, this oath, and this victory would be remembered not only as a tale of combat, but as a testament to the enduring spirit of his people and the power of a promise kept at all costs.